Alright, hey guys, how you doing out there? It's time for another episode of From the Crow's Mouth, a video podcast hosted by me, Mitch Cumming, lead guitar player, lead singer, songwriter, etc. for the band Stone Cold Crows. And today is episode 12, I believe? That's like 3 months since I started doing this thing. Man, how time flies when you're having fun in lockdowns, right? It's also the last episode of Gin-uary. And I got one more gin cocktail for you to show you how to make. Of course, there's a bunch more on our website, www.stonecoldcrows.com. Check out the crowbar. I'm also going to be adding a whack of other gin recipes that I've prepared that weren't on the podcast this month, so you'll have some variety to choose from. So check it out. Next month we'll be moving on to a different spirit, but I'm not going to tell you yet. But what's this episode going to be about? It's certainly not about gin. Well, not all of it anyway. It's actually going to be about the band's mantra. Dare to be different and create cool shit. And I want to talk to you about what that means to us and where it came from. And I also kind of want to talk to you about why I chose to talk about that this week. Because recently some events happened that affected me as a music fan, and probably a bunch of other people too. And so I just wanted to talk about, maybe some of the meaning behind our mantra and why moments like that hit and it inspires you just a little bit more. So before we do that though, I will show you how to make one of these delectable Negronis, and then we can start the chat. Let's do that. Hey guys, welcome to another bartender segment of From the Crow's Mouth. That's right, a video podcast hosted by me, Mitch Cumming, frontman, songwriter for the band Stone Cold Crows. And this is the last episode of Gin-uary. That just, of course, means I'm featuring gin drinks during the month of January, and this is the last one. We're going to go on to something new next month and next episode. But I saved a really good one for last, and maybe you've heard of it. The Negroni. And if you live where I do, in Ottawa or Canada really, you might have had some difficulty over the past year getting your hands on one of the key ingredients to this drink, Campari. What with COVID doing a number on international shipments and shortages, and this particular spirit was just impossible to find. I've talked to liquor reps all over the place, and they said they hadn't had it in months. But luckily for me, I got my hands on a bottle just in time for this month, and I've been enjoying these all month. So, it's a simple drink, but it's one that if you've never had Campari before, and my initial reaction was the same to it when I did try it, it's bitter. Like, if you're used to like Italian or French bitters, Aperol being a good example, maybe Amaro, Campari kicks that bitterness up a notch. But it is an acquired taste, and once you have it, man, you will love it. And I used to serve, and still do serve, a lot of these at the bar. People are very particular when they get their Negronis and their taste for Negronis. So, what's in a Negroni? It is literally 3 ingredients, all equal parts, very simple, built in a rocks glass over ice, and stirred. And those ingredients are, as you might imagine, last episode of Gin-uary, gin. Today I'm using Roku gin, and Roku means 6 in Japanese, and the name comes from the 6 unique Japanese botanicals that make up the type of the gin. I've been saving a little bit of this bottle that I have just for this drink because I really like it. And Japanese gin has been, boom, huge demand for it. So if you can find a bottle of Roku, I highly suggest you pick one up. It's really good. So we're going to use an ounce of Roku. We're going to use an ounce of sweet vermouth. To be honest with you, I don't really think it matters too much the type. You're going to find a type of vermouth. If you're a vermouth drinker that you like, go with that. For now, I'm just going to go with this one here, Dolan. That's the one I have on my shelf at the moment. And of course, as I talked to you already about, Campari. Build the drink, 3 shots, 3 ounces each. Doesn't really matter what order you put them in because you're going to give it a little stir afterwards. So, start with the Roku. Ooh, and look at that, I got enough for one more. Lucky me. Sweet vermouth. And of course, the straw that stirs the drink. The real main ingredient of this one that it gets most of its flavor from, the Campari. As you can see, look at that color. Beautiful red color, red-orange is made with oranges. And speaking of oranges, that's what you're going to garnish with. But first, I'm just going to gently give it a little stir. I've just got our orange wedge here. I'm just going to stick it on the side of the glass like that. Maybe snap a photo for the photo section. But I will be enjoying this during the podcast. And that is where I will see you during the music part of the podcast. So, cheers. The end of Gin-uary. And look at that fella. We are back, and we have a Negroni. If you could get your hands on a bottle of Campari, that is. International shortages everywhere, at least in Canada, for most of what I feel like was 2021. And I talked to liquor reps, and I talked to, people in the store, and everybody, we just couldn't find it. And whenever they did get a shipment, they did get a shipment, Negroni fans and Campari fans actually just bought like cases of the stuff because they were just hurting for their Negroni. It is a very acquired taste, but once you got it, a lot of people really like it. So hopefully, like myself, you managed to score a bottle or two, and you're sipping on one of these sometime soon. I didn't like them at first, but now I love them. So let's talk about our mantra. And first of all, why did I choose it? Let's talk about that first. So as many of you know, in the music community, we lost an icon in this last week. Of course, I'm talking about Meat Loaf. And maybe you liked his music and maybe you didn't. But there's no denying the impact that this guy had on the music community. Like when the debut album that him and John Steinman, who also passed away last April, so that's a double hit. Bat Out of Hell, a rock opera as your debut album comes out. And everybody turned it down. All the major labels, they were just turning it down, saying, this will never work, this will never work. Turns out, Bat Out of Hell, the album, has gone on to be, and was, one of the biggest selling albums, debut albums even, of all time. Still to this day, up there in that record. And that was, I think, 1977 it came out, so that's a long time ago. But there's no denying the influence it had on me, and a lot of my influences as a songwriter and a musician. So it was really sad to see that Meat Loaf passed. But it's kind of happening a lot lately, you know, a lot of iconic guys from that era. I mean, he was 74. You know, to be 74 years old and live the kind of life that some of these rock icons did, that's saying something. So it's kind of like, wow, you know, watching some of these icons drop off, Eddie Van Halen, Dusty Hill, a lot of others that I'm not even going to name off. But what does that have to do with our mantra, Meat Loaf's passing? Well, dare to be different. Couldn't be more different at the time when Meat Loaf and John Steinman wrote Bat Out of Hell, and they pitched it to everybody. Nobody wanted a piece of it. Till finally someone did. They believed in it, and someone else did, even though they were constantly told what a waste of time it was. And that's the reward that comes, I think, with being different. You know, Black Sabbath, one of my ultimate huge influences. Nobody wanted them around when they started. They were the devil's music. They were evil. You know, people were telling them that they were like burning people at the stake, and it's like they wore crosses, for Christ's sake. Like, yes, their music sang about some dark stuff, but bad publicity. Eventually, a bunch of people were like, what's this all about? And yeah, it was different, and it stood out. And actually, reading Ozzy Osbourne's biography, talking about Tony Iommi and how he literally quit Jethro Tull, which at the time, you don't quit Jethro Tull to go back and be with his boys in Black Sabbath that hadn't been Black Sabbath yet, because he's like, our band's going to be better. It's going to be different, and it's going to be better. I would argue that they succeeded at that. Alice Cooper, shock rock, pioneer, different. Nobody'd seen anything like that before. Kiss, nobody'd seen anything like that. And the music that evolved from those bands that dared to think outside the box and do things differently, like those are the ones that stand the test of time as icons. Doing what everybody else is already doing, that might get you more attention immediately just because in the business, somebody knows where to put you. If you go to a record store, or are those even a thing anymore? I guess. But they have to categorize you. They have to know where are we going to put you. Same thing with radio. Everybody needs to know, where do you fit in? Well, what if you don't fit in somewhere? Well, that's a hill. Sometimes it's a little more difficult to climb. But eventually, if you succeed, they're going to be putting in other people in your box. You're going to have your own box that other people fit into. And that's where great things happen. And you need to dare to be different, because it's not easy. And Stone Cold Crows, like the bands that influence me where I am, are not popular. You'd see a band like Nightwish or Avantasia, and the frontman and creator of Avantasia, which is like a metal opera, hugely influenced by Meat Loaf, except for more metal. And you see them in Canada, and you see them in these small, tiny venues, whenever they do come to Canada, that is. But you go over where they're from, and they're playing 50,000 people, and it's just a culture thing. They're not, they don't get they're not popular over here. So it's very different for Stone Cold Crows to use influences like that and expect to succeed over here. People aren't used to it. And even playing around with targeted ads, I've noticed, when we target ads in the States, we get a lot of negative feedback for our stuff. But if you look at what people call hard rock and metal in the States versus Germany or something, for example, it's a pretty big difference. So we expect to have to deal with that adversity, and we are purposefully trying to be different. We wear suits in our photo shoot. That's not very rock and roll. But you know what? We stand out. We look different. And hopefully that'll continue to be a part of our branding, being different. We don't want to look like the same people in the audience that come to see us, even though that's how I dress a lot of the times when I'm not, in a photo shoot or on stage. I wear all of our merchandise. Jeans, black t-shirt is a pretty classic look for me a lot of the time. But I don't want to look like that. I don't want to look like somebody in the audience when I'm on a stage. You should be able to pick me out, I would hope, if I'm doing my job right. And that's part of being different. And even our music, we use a lot of weird instruments. The orchestration with blues influence and hard rock influence, classical mixing with bluegrass-based harmonies. Like Bryson and I both listen to bluegrass music, and we used to listen to it a lot when we were in our other band, Creekwater Junkies, touring from gig to gig. And the vocal harmonies they do in bluegrass, I think, are probably the best. They're the best kind of harmonies. So all these weird influences and things that we do on purpose is to be different. And yeah, we expect it to be a hard road. I mean, this pandemic hasn't helped anything, particularly when our sources of income are also being constantly stopped due to lockdowns. Like, as you may know, I make drinks. I'm a bartender. I think over 50% of the last 2 years now, I have been on EI, or looking to try and find something to supplement income. But I believe in this project, and so I'm not ready to just abandon it to a 9-to-5 office gig that I'm not going to get the time when the time comes to do this. I've used my time to start a podcast, start working on some cocktail stuff, otherwise maybe a book down the road, new merch stuff. We've got another album, maybe two, worth of music that I've been sitting and working on. Like, they were all in on this, and we are going to only further step out of what is considered normal for this genre. And so we like to think we're doing that. And it's influenced by the people that made all of that genre even possible, in my opinion. I don't know really what else I can say. I started listening to, and that's not even just a music thing. That's something I was going to say. I started listening to an audio book last night, Matthew McConaughey's his book, and it's called Green Lights. And I will say, just a side note, if you ever use a service like Audible and listen to audiobooks, I prefer to read a lot. I actually do read a lot, and I like to hold a book in my hand, not an e-reader. I'm still a big fan of the feeling of pages, and classic literature I really like. But for something like a biography, if you can listen to the actual author narrate it, especially somebody who has such a commanding presence or persona, it feels like you're having a personal conversation with them. And so I've listened to a lot of them. Bruce Dickinson had a great autobiography, singer for Iron Maiden. Fantastic. But I started listening to Matthew McConaughey's last night, and I haven't even got very far. And it's called Green Lights, and just the concept of what he calls that. And he says, okay, well, what's a green light? And he gets talking about it. And it's like, green lights are the signals in life that say go. It's the good things, and it's when life is just working out for you. But of course, then you've got yellow lights and red lights, and nobody wants those. And his biography is kind of aiming at talking about all those moments in life that seem like red lights, and how you can recognize to turn them into green lights. How to catch more yeses in a world of no's, I believe, is a line in his early introduction. And I thought, man, isn't that the world that we're living in right now? A world of no. Like, social media in particular has made it so easy for these weekend warriors and trolls to just come out and shit on literally everything you're doing, when they have no business doing so. We get negative comments about music all the time, and I'm looking at the profiles of the people who are saying them, and I'm like, guarantee you don't know jack shit about music, and I would love to hear your song if you tried to write one. Now, of course, I'm not going to say that, because why would I? But it would be like the same as me looking at somebody's work of art in terms of visual art or carpentry or anything that I don't know about, and just saying, you know what, I think that's pretty stupid. Why? Why do that? We live in a sea of negativity. Why not encourage somebody, even when they're starting out? Good job, man. You're only going to keep getting better. So to find more yeses in a sea of no's really kind of hit me, and I really think it's going to be an interesting read based on how it's gone so far. And you know what? The same message is coming through from what his life experience seems to be, and there is a pattern. I have read a lot of biographies of people who I would wish to emulate their success. That's an old Tony Robbins strategy. And you know what? You notice patterns. People who succeed don't say no. They don't say no when other people tell them no. They find a way to fight through adversity, and they believe in what they're doing, and they manifest their own destiny, and that is really important. And they stick to their guns. Be different. I'll show you something. I keep this figure. This is Tyrion Lannister, Peter Dinklage's breakthrough role on the hit TV show Game of Thrones. And if you ever go back and read about how he got into everything, it was a struggle. He just said, I'm going to be an actor, period, and not a typecast actor. He's not just going to play roles of like Christmas elves and stuff because of his height. Like, he was not going to do that. And look at him. He came in and stole the show, the biggest TV show in the history of the world at the time. And it has guaranteed him success, and he doesn't do typecast roles. And to have that fortitude is something a lot of people don't possess. And part of it is just being different. And so the other part of our mantra, and this is where I'm probably going to leave this episode because I think I've hammered home the point about how being different can be so rewarding if you stick to it, if you believe in it. The create cool shit part is just the art part. If you're a creative person out there, Make stuff. Just create stuff. And you get better as you do it, and the reward of doing it is actually just doing it. But if you like doing it, create stuff, be different, because you never know. Success could come around the corner, and all the red lights, or what seems like red lights right now, adversity, losing your income to COVID, losing the entire industry to COVID, whatever. That's a red light, but who knows? Maybe down the road, it's going to be a green light because you had time to do it. You had time. So don't waste it. Get out there. Dare to be different. Create cool shit. Sip on a Negroni. Listen to some Stone Cold Crows. We're getting jacked up for February here and to go back to some kind of normalcy. So I will see you next week. We'll make some drinks. We will talk about some music. And there is new stuff coming soon. So cheers, guys. See you next time.